Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us for our Sunday service. I knew that today is our Temple Fun Day, and that we will be having members from West Covina to join us for today. And so Reverend Yoshi is sitting next to me, and I was thinking, oh, I should have asked her to give the Dharma talk today. But it's too late now, so I will do what I can. Today is one of our main events, the Temple Fun Day, that we hold pretty much every year, I think. And especially this year, to have our friends from West Covina join us makes it even a more enjoyable, I think, event. In Japan, well, first of all, I guess in Japan there is a holiday called Keiro no Hi, which translates as Respect for Elders Day. So it's kind of like celebration of grandparents and so forth. And this year it was on the 18th of this month, just about a week ago. And it was made a national holiday back in 1966, so it hasn't been that long since that holiday was started. Most likely, I would think that it was at a time when society was seeing a rise in the senior citizen population, and at the same time, the trend to somewhat disregard our elders was happening. And so I think it's a good thing to have such a holiday. Just as we need Mother's Day to remember to thank our mothers, we also need a holiday to honor our elders as well. Since I turned 75 a couple of weeks ago, I'm firmly entrenched as the member of the Old People Club. And so today I thought that I would share with you a story that I was reminded of when I think of Keiro no Hi, or Respect for Elders Day. This is kind of like a fairy tale. I don't think it's, it certainly wasn't a true story, but long ago, there was a kingdom, and there they lived two brothers and their elderly father. And also, the young king lived there as well, and always trying to figure out how to make the kingdom a better place to live in. And so one year, there wasn't much rain, so there wasn't enough food for everyone. And so the king was thinking, well, what should I do? And then he thought, well, it's young people who do all the work. The people that we don't really need are the old people. And therefore, if we send all the old people away, then there'll be a lot less people to feed, and everyone will be happier. So the king made this proclamation. He said, all people over the age of 60 will have to leave the kingdom at the end of October. And meanwhile, in this one particular house, there were two brothers and an elderly father, and they heard the news. And the older brother was thinking the same way as the king. If we don't have our father to feed anymore, then we'll have more food for ourselves. So he was basically, the older brother was basically happy with the king's decision. But then the younger brother, he loved his father very much, and he didn't want to have to send him away. And so he was very sad to hear, this proclamation that was made by the king. When the day drew closer, the brothers packed up some things for their father to take, and among them was the warmest blanket in the house. And so then the younger brother, he took that blanket and he began to rip it in half. And so the older brother was saying, well, what are you doing? Why are you ripping that blanket in half? And then the younger brother said, well, I was thinking about it. You're much older than I am, and so one day I'll have to send you away. And since we only have this one nice blanket, I was going to save half so that when you have to leave, I'll have a blanket for you to take too. And all of a sudden, the older brother realized how terrible a law it was. One day he was going to be 62, and he too will be sent away from the kingdom. And so he started to feel very sorry for his father, at the same time realized how terrible he was, taking his father for granted, not loving him, not appreciating everything that he did for him as he was growing up. And so then he thought to himself, he says, we're going to have to go to the king to tell him to stop this from happening. And so then when the two brothers went to talk to the king, and they said, they're just very sad, to hear this decision where they have to send their father away. So he said, they asked him to see if the king would stop this from happening. And so, as he was listening to the sad words of the two brothers, the king also realized the folly of his decision, and he changed his mind, and everyone was able to live happily ever after. There's another story that was developed in Japan long ago, and it's similar, but it's much more tragic. And it was told in a movie called The Ballad of Narayama. And it talks about an area in olden Japan where when parents turned a certain age, maybe I think it was like 70, it was the responsibility of the oldest child to take that parent up into the mountain of Narayama, basically to die. And if I remember correctly, it's about a young man who decides that this is not the right thing to do, and he's able to change that custom so that they don't have to send their fathers away. I have to admit that thoughts about old age and death have been creeping up on me lately. One milestone was 15 years ago when I turned 60. And according to the Japanese and Chinese tradition with the zodiac, with the 12 animal years, reaching 60 means that you've gone through 5 cycles, 5 cycles of 12 years. And in olden times, 60 was considered to be one full lifetime. And so with the celebration of the 60th birthday, and that's called, in Japanese, it's called kanreki, one's 60th birthday, it's looked upon as a new birth. And so the person who turned 60 and they're having a party for him would be wearing this red vest and a hat signifying to become an infant again, a baby again. And basically, it's like the beginning of a new cycle of life. And in this day and age in which the average age is close to over probably 80, that kind of perspective is no longer in place. And so a person who's 60 is certainly not looked upon nowadays as being elderly. But then I think, 75 is. And so what does Buddhism have to say about aging and death? For one thing, those two things, aging and death, are among the four things that the Buddha counted as the primary causes of human suffering. The other two, of course, are birth and illness. And the problem is that we have the tendency to try to avoid, or at least to delay those things from happening, and we want to stay, basically forever young. We want to stay forever healthy, and we want to stay forever alive. And so I remember this story about a man who comes to see the Zen priest, the famous Zen priest in history, Ryokan, at his temple. The man was extremely wealthy, and he had enjoyed the epitome of fame and fortune, and he also happened to be very healthy. The only problem, though, was that he was starting to get old. And so he goes to see, the Zen priest Ryokan, and says to him, I've been blessed all of my life, and I have had all that I could wish for. The ultimate fulfillment for me would be to be able to live until I'm 100. And that would bring me so much happiness. Can you, as you know, a noble Zen priest, be able to fulfill my wish? And so then Ryokan says, well, why don't you just convince yourself that you're 100 years old now? Then all of your wishes would have been fulfilled. At any rate, we set for ourselves various standards. Maybe society sets them for us, and we kind of buy into it. In today's world, youth is a plus, old age is a minus, health is a plus, sickness is minus, life is plus, and death is minus. And so we go to any length to maintain our health, our youth, and ultimately our lives. There's been a discussion in the Japanese medical world in questioning some of the practices of medicine in Japan from quite a while ago, I think. And basically, I think the same is here, but the focus today is towards prolonging life, to do whatever possible to prolong the lives of the people who are getting old. An example is of treating people over 80 for high blood pressure. It was found that people who receive treatment often become afflicted with Alzheimer's. And so in an effort to prolong life, it's actually making life more difficult for many. So now what many researchers, well, this is probably some time ago, but in the medical field are suggesting is that they focus on what is called QOL, quality of life, and ADL, activity of daily life. That, in other words, for elderly people and certainly younger people as well, treatment for illness should not come at the expense of severely diminishing the quality of one's everyday life. Buddhism, I think, tells us the same thing, to enjoy the moment, to enjoy the day at hand, regardless of the circumstances. But we find ourselves never really being satisfied with the present and putting our hopes into tomorrow. Pascal, a 17th century scientist and philosopher, once said something like this: to say I will be happy tomorrow, I will be happy tomorrow, is to live preparing for tomorrow's happiness until I die. So we constantly find ourselves at the end of the day not being totally satisfied and saying to ourselves, maybe next week, the next month, and will be better, and so on and so on. It would be like a baseball team or a football team playing every game as a preseason game. It doesn't count, just preparing for tomorrow. Well, you know, back in the old days when I was healthier, I used to play golf, and I'd always go, you know, to the golf range with high hopes. But by the third or fourth hole, I'm already disappointed and start to rationalize, well, let's forget about today. I'm practicing the rest of the round for the next time I come. And it reminded me of a poem that I translated from Japanese into English. The Japanese title is called Sonouchi, which I translate as In Time. And so it goes like, well, it was composed by the modern poet Mitsuo Aida. It goes, in time after I save some money, in time after we build a house, in time when the children are grown, later when I get settled at work, maybe later when I get some free time. Always saying later, in time, tomorrow, while making excuses one after another. I realize how little I've accomplished. The curtain falls on this wretched life with only a tombstone to remember me by. Another day has come and gone, putting off tomorrow what I should have done today, not realizing that the path of life can be never walked again. Japanese use the word shiawase to mean happiness. But actually, the root, according to one priest, is different. It's to receive an important job, responsibility from the Buddha or from someone that you totally respect. And that fulfillment of that, of discovering, in a sense, The reason why I was born into this world to fulfill that role, that job, that responsibility is true happiness. To be able to receive the challenge or the responsibility, and to be able to do what we can to try to the best of our abilities to fulfill that. The questions posed today are we enjoying the moment just as it is? Are we being fulfilled on an everyday basis, on an every moment basis? Or do we continue to put off, as the poem says, what we should be doing today until tomorrow? So this is, it's a reminder for me because on my day off, I tend to do nothing. And, Buddhism reminds me that I am getting old and that I should enjoy, every day, every moment that I'm alive. Of course, that's not just for old people, but it's for all of us. And it is really to enjoy life to the best of our abilities. When I look at the smiling faces of all of you who come to service, I think you're all doing a good job in living that life and enjoying it for each one of us. Well, thank you for listening.